Hi everyone, this is Sharon. Welcome to Tag Team Friday. Today we are going to dust off those old rubber stamps we don't use very often and recreate this tag. This is a prototype I made, so this is what we're going to be recreating today. And the materials I used are some vintage papers, a rubber stamp, and this is the one I've used for this tag, some images from the Beekeeper's Cottage bundle on the premium membership site, and I think that's about it. Some fabric for our tie at the top. So I'm going to set this off to the side as a reference and kind of step through my process. Some tools that we'll need will be a couple different sizes of scissors, fussy cutting and general cutting. I used a 1/4 inch punch for my hole at the top. I've used a couple different types of glue. We'll be using a glue stick and some art glitter glue. And that is about it. So for my tag base, I am just going to use this lightweight cardstock. And it doesn't matter to me what color it is because this will be totally and completely covered. And then for my base layers, since we're kind of on a fashion theme with this tag, I pulled out an instruction sheet from a sewing pattern, so we'll glue that down to our base first. And then on top of that, I am going to layer this sewing pattern tissue paper, and I just like the way that looks over the top of the instructions. So as we look at our tag, then our next layer up will be this floral image. So I'm going to layer that behind my lady. And then the stamp, I actually stamped on top of this wallpaper border from that Beekeeper's Cottage bundle. And so I'll be stamping her on there and cutting her out. And then on the back side, I just covered that with some coffee dyed ledger paper. So I've got some of that. And then I always like to embellish a little bit on my backs. And so I'm just going to use this little piece of ephemera from one of the mini ephemera bundles. So let's clear all of these out. Okay, so for my first layer, I am going to take the sewing pattern paper, and I just have a large piece. And what I'll do is glue this entire piece of cardstock and then cover that. And I want to get a nice good layer of glue down there. And then, let's see, I think the easiest way is to just lay this down this way. Okay. And then I'm going to take my scissors and cut that out around the cardstock. So that's my first layer on the front side of my tag. And then on top of that, I'm going to put my tissue paper. So again, I'm just going to take my glue stick and totally cover this first layer. Okay, and then I really like this pattern paper because it's got this nice blue. Try to figure out what maximize the usage of the lines. I think maybe something like this. I'm just going to push that down from the center on out, and I don't mind if there are a few little wrinkles in there. It just adds a little bit of extra texture to it. Smooth that down. And then again, we will cut around our tag. Okay, so I think that makes a really nice base. Then our next layer is this flower image. And oh boy, I lost it already. Oh, here it is. Okay, so I am going to semi-fussy cut around this. I'm not a real fussy cutter, but I will cut around the outside, and I left the white on the inside, and I don't mind that look at all. So I'm not going to cut out all those little pieces on the inside. I'm just going to cut around the outside of my image. Okay, I have my flower cut out, and I'm going to glue that down onto my tag base. Again, I'm using my glue stick. I really like using a glue stick just for general, good, complete coverage. And I think we'll stick that right about there. And then our top layer is our lady. So I have this stamp, and as I was looking at my tag and what I wanted to do, I thought, how can I use my stamp a little bit differently than what I would normally do? And what I thought about is maybe just giving her outfit a little bit of a lift and putting some pattern on it. So I chose this wallpaper border pattern from the Keeper's Cottage bundle. And the reason I chose this is because it had some nice pattern on the bottom, but it was rather plain on top, so we wouldn't have a lot of pattern on her face. So that's something to keep in mind as you're stamping. So I'm going to set those aside and get my ink out. And I'm thinking black ink would work best if you're working with a lot of pattern, just to be able to see it well through all that pattern. My ink pad is a little on the dry side, so I'm going to try to ink it up pretty well. Okay, and I think I'm going to put her right about maybe there. Okay, so she's just got a nice little floral pattern to her outfit. And my next step will be to cut her out. And again, I don't mind a little bit of extra on the outside. That's just how I fussy cut. And if you have a nice pattern underneath it, I think it looks fine. But I know a lot of you out there are really good at fussy cutting, so you will be a lot neater about it than I am. Okay, so we have our lady cut out, and we will bring her back, and I think we can put her, let's see, that looks pretty good right about there. And you can really get creative with your backgrounds and your patterns and your stamps. Okay, so we've got her on there. Now, my next step is going to be to cut my little triangle pieces out at the top. So we'll just make a tag shape. I'm not so good at getting those completely straight, so I'm going to just take that piece and put it on this side. And one thing I should have done actually before I cut those is to adhere my back. So I'm going to do that right now. And I'm going to take this ledger paper and adhere that to the back side. Again, you can get creative with your back side. I like to use ledger paper, lined paper. Sometimes I use grid paper or graph paper, whatever you're feeling or whatever you have on hand. Okay. So now we can cut that piece to fit. Okay, so we have our tag fully covered front and back. And then I think before, if you'll notice on this one, I did stitch around the outside of the tag. So before I do that, I want to put my little embellishment down here. So I'm just going to take this little piece of ephemera and attach it right there. And I like to kind of have them going off the side sometimes, so that's what I'm going to do. Cut that off. Okay, now I am going to take this tag to my sewing machine and just run some stitching all around the outside of the tag. I am back with my tag, and as you can see, I stitched around the outside of my tag. The next step will be to add this little reinforcement at the top where my hole is. So I've got this little piece of cardstock that I cut from a hanging file folder. And for this, I'm going to use my art glitter glue, mostly because it's quite a small piece, and also I think this will hold this heavier stock a little bit better than a glue stick will. So just put that on the top and center that. I just ran it around the outside so it doesn't interfere with my hole punching. Now I'll put my hole in the middle. Grab a piece of, this is some old vintage cotton that I'm using for my tie. I thought that went well with my golds. It's a little thick, so it takes a little fiddling, but I think that looks pretty nice. So that's the one we made today. This is my prototype, and I also had some fun earlier with a few other stamps of mine too that I'll show you. I made this one. I had this stamp of this chair, so I stamped that onto this pattern from the Beekeeper's Cottage bundle again. Give it a little upholstery, and then I just topped it with a piece of pressed leaves, and I put that out in the garden setting of the cottage. I thought that's cute. I've got some washi on the top, and that's the back. And then I had some fun with some dress stamps that I also have. So this one I stamped onto some wallpaper images from one of the wallpaper bundles, and I put a dress on the front and the back and adhered those to some black cardstock. And I just thought this would make a really fun gift tag. Here's another one. I just used some eyelet lace, an eyelet lace image. And this is some marble paper from the author bundle. And I gave this a little more formal look with the black on one side. And again, this I think would make a nice gift tag. So I hope you got a little bit of inspiration from our tags today using some of those rubber stamps that you might not have pulled out in quite some time. Thank you for coming along with me today, and until next time, bye-bye.